Hey you guys, my name is Drew Davis and I run the VoiceBox Studio International, and I teach voice all over the world, locally, nationally, and internationally. And I get a lot of questions every day from people and artists who are singers, and they say, Drew, how can we better our voice? How can we get that commercial sound? How can we get into head voice? How can we build the mix and create commercial tones that don't harm our voice? So what I figured I would do is I figured I would go through some of these email questions that I get and share them with you guys so that you guys can build a foundation vocally that it's not going to let you down. Okay, so let's begin with the first one. I got an email from John in the UK, and John says, Drew, thank you so much for sharing your voice and vocal tips on YouTube. I've learned so much about singing just by watching your videos. Will you do me a favor and please tell me the one thing you wish your vocal coaches had told you in the very beginning when you started to sing, but never did until later on when you dug for that information? Wow. Well, John, that's a very cool question. He's from the UK of all places. Wow. The one thing I wish the vocal coaches had told me. Well, John, I guess there are two things I think that really stick out and come to mind. Number one is that the break doesn't necessarily start at the F sharp. We're always taught that for men, the F sharp is like the no man's land, and then you break, it's and then you break open, and then nothing, right? It's and then from there you got nothing. And the truth is that to some respect that is true. There is a break at the F sharp. The chords tighten to make a higher pitch, loosen to make a lower pitch, and they get to a point where they can't make a higher pitch at the F sharp, and so they break open, like George of the Jungle, right? But I wish somebody had told me, number one, that the break doesn't really start at the F sharp. It starts at the middle C for most men, tenors, that is. So it's you can feel a pulse start. You can feel it just starts at the middle C. So you got to deal with that problem early on. And so when you're doing your practices, make sure that you're literally blending down really low in the beginning. Number two is that I wish somebody had told me up in the head voice, the male's voice reconnects, the head voice reconnects at the B or the C, give or take. Right here. So you have a no man's land at F sharp. Nothing, and then all of a sudden, you start to get the head voice in there that you can pull on. And that's why, like Rascal Flatts, you hear him do that. Right? He's got that pulled feeling, and then he transitioned into head voice. My voice isn't even really good today because I've had a cough, but I'm still able to do it, and I haven't even warmed up. But I wish somebody had taught me that you got to get into the B here for you men, and for women it's going to be probably up here like the E. And you're going to want to blend that down. You're going to want to go with a squeak. That little bit of a squeak thins the chords because that's what they have to do. Instead of sitting open on a heavy chord closure and tightening and loosening, they have to thin. And the only way to get them to thin is get that little bit of a squeak in there and start to blend down. So give yourself a squeak with an M. Like, good. I like that. That's good. Girlfriend. That's good. You ever heard that before? It's like, girl. Oh, you, girlfriend. Sorry, I'm losing it. Okay, and I would work on that. Know that the break happens at the middle C, and that you should get into the B. Give yourself a squeak and blend down. Most guys, I get up there and they go, and they got nothing in the beginning. And you got to build that head voice. You got to build them in and then down. It's like a curve, right? It's like a, and then you get the next one. So same thing with chest. It's that same thing. It's like it's almost like a slide whistle. You get that, right? Because that resonance is changing. And the biggest thing is you got to learn to not let your resonance change, but let your voice change around your resonance. That's huge. That's huge. Because most of us will go, we're lifting the pitch, but the resonance is changing, and we're accommodating the resonance change in the voice when the resonance should accommodate the voice. When you go the voice should just sit like that. It wants to go where it wants to go. Let it sit like that and then build from there. Okay. Next question. By the way, John, thank you so much for your question. It's very cool of you to write up. I hope that helped you in some respect. Oh, and the other thing I was going to say is you do the big, oh man, I totally missed this. Pharyngeal. You've got to get pharyngeal in your voice. If you don't have, which is a big fancy word, and you'll have to forgive me because I have a real problem with vocal coaches who use those kind of big words like messa de vice, bel canto, and vocal cricothyroid, vocalese, all these really interesting terms. But what does that mean to you and me as a singer, right? What does that do for us? You know, it's seriously like sing from your diaphragm. Well, we have all heard that. If that made us all good singers, we'd all be great singers. So it's not necessarily just hearing a word, it's getting to the point of the term. But what I mean by pharyngeal is when you hear that you got to have that sound in the back, the NG, the If you don't have that, you're not going to be able to lean in correctly, and even if you do get your transition, it's going to be majorly pulled. Kind of like mine sometimes. And that's why I'm so passionate about this, is because I put that foundation together wrong in the beginning. Took me a while to fix it. Okay, number 2, from Julie from California. Julie, thank you for your email. Drew, thank you for posting your videos. I show them to my entire family, and they all love to watch you sing. Man in the Mirror is our favorite, along with the Rascal Flatts covers. Well, they're very cool of you, Julie, to say that. Thank you so much. My question isn't so technical, but I'm curious to know, what's the craziest place that you've taught voice? Wow. Well, I've taken voice for a decade. I've done it for about that long. Taught for about that long. And probably I've understudied with Brett Manning, Skousen, who's an SLS, and tons of other people. Some knew what they were talking about. Some really knew what they were talking about, like Brett. Just got off the phone with him, in fact, 30 minutes ago. Brett Manning is a good friend of mine. Very, very talented at what he does. And then some don't know what the heck they're talking about. But I've taken voice everywhere, and I've taught voice even in more crazy places. I've taught voice in just about every state in the nation of the United States, in Canada, UK, all over the UK, all over Australia. But probably the craziest place would be Malaysia and Thailand. I think I taught someone in Thailand. And that's really crazy because you end up teaching people that they don't even speak English, you don't think. At least the nation and society there, to the best of my understanding, doesn't speak English, and yet they're watching your videos, and then you're training them vocally, and they end up doing things that you never dreamed, and things that I can't even do, they're doing. And it's so cool to see people accomplish stuff like that happen. Like that. So anyway, with that being said, Julie, thank you for your email, and I'm glad you guys like the Flatts covers and Man in the Mirror. Okay. Ben from Australia says, "Hey Drew, thanks for rocking out the videos. You're my favorite YouTube artist." Well, very cool, Ben. Thank you so much. How did you get to be able to sing like Gary LeVox from Rascal Flatts? And is singing just a God-given talent, or can you work at it? Wow. Well, first and foremost, there is something to be said for talent, but anybody can learn to sing. That's the cool thing, is that, you know, there are two parts of voice: what your talent, and then your ability to use that talent. And I've seen people who work at it, and because they work at it in their voice, they outperform people who have talent all day long because they've opened up their voice and they've done the right things. But to answer your question, the Rascal Flatts part, I learned to sing like Gary because, and by the way, I've met them, and they're cool guys, and I've sung demos for them that get pitched to them, and they say, songwriters, major songwriters say, you know, we want somebody who can sound like them, so that when they hear it, it relates to them, and so they send me the demos, I sing them, and then they cut them and everything, but or they listen to whatever. Anyway, long story short, I listened to their records back in the day a lot. I just did. I related to it. And when I listen to somebody sing or speak, I can hear what's happening in their voice. Even when they're talking, I can feel it. A lot of people don't know that when we're reading, your voice actually vibrates when you read silently. And I think it's like that, but magnified. I can tell what's going on. And I remember listening to Gary sing, and I was like, yeah. You know, he would sing. He has these really cool sounds. He has a sound and a style that you've never heard before. And I remember thinking, man, that's cool. I want to be able to do that. So I worked at it. And for a while, it took me a while to get the runs. And obviously runs are directly related to vibrato. So if you can do a vibrato, you can usually do a run. Yee. By the way, that's a good practice for you guys who don't know. A yee, lean into the Y. Yee. There's so many things about voice I wish somebody taught me in the beginning. That's why I do what I do. But anyway, long story short, I listen to the radio. I listen to the records, and I just try to copy what he did. Gary has this cool way of leaning through his larynx. A lot of people will pull up on their larynx, and the chords get stuck in the larynx. The larynx comes up, and the chords get stuck. But what he does is he always leans through, and there's a very big difference between hey, hey, hey. You can hear the catch, right? Hey. But he has this way of leaning into an and always passing through. So there's a big difference between hey and hey, 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 as opposed to hey. So he has this way of always leaning through and getting through the larynx, which is very, very different. It's unlike anything I've ever heard before. If you hear me sing Come Wake Me Up, and I go, come wake me up, and I lean through the ha. If you listen closer to that, I'm leaning through. You'll hear the vibrato when it kicks in, and I'm leaning through. And he can do that. He's just really talented at that. Very cool guy, too, by the way. And yeah. But, yeah, to answer your question, brother, Ben, thank you so much from Australia. I listened to their records for a long time, and I worked at the runs. Now, don't get me wrong, it took me practicing to build the sheen and the head voice. I had to. There's just no way. Listening isn't good enough. You've got to build the practice in there. And there are a handful of practices that are just foundational that I wish coaches had taught me. First and foremost, in closing, most of you guys, by the way, if you're interested in working with me and having me help you with your voice, feel free and contact me through email or write me up here on YouTube, or you can write me at thevoiceboxstudio@yahoo.com. Like I said, I teach locally, nationally, and internationally, and I'd love to work with you. But what it comes down to is at the end of the day, we all have a break in our voice, and we've got to get through it. What I talked about earlier is getting you in the high end, that B, but you're still going to have a break. You're still going to have a bridge, and you've got to get that bridge ironed out. There's a mum, a nay, a goog, a gee. There's all these different practices you have to do in order to get that to sit right. So you can go, excuse me, instead of going mum, it's mum, and it's gee, with a total blend without e. And the idea is to blend that out and then start to lean you in to your pharyngeal so you get a full sound, which can take some time. And for men, this is so important because men by nature sing chesty and heavily because that's our personality. It's what we do. Yo, man, give me the ball, you know? And so we end up singing heavily, and we put our voices in danger by doing that because we end up singing so heavily and belty, and we end up getting split phonations and all this kind of stuff, all these vocal dysfunctions that come down the line because of that. So with that being said, you guys, thank you so much for your emails. I hope that this helped you somewhat with some basic practices, and that if you have any other questions, feel free to give me a contact, and we'll go from there. I wish you guys nothing but the best, and I'll see you around the bend. Peace.